Hello friends and foes of Middle-earth, and welcome back. In this fourth part, we will continue to break down all the material released by Amazon, and give points for lore accuracies and lore inaccuracies. Today we will go through the Empire magazines and discuss some of the stuff revealed in it. So, without further ado, let's talk about the Empire magazine covers. Let's start with the worst one. Disa and Durin. Nothing new lore-wise, but damn, that's a really bad picture. It just looks like bad Photoshop, really. I'm surprised they actually released this image. Personal negative. And Galadriel man-spreading. Feels like they're trying to send a message, I guess. Again, I've already said I don't like the idea of warrior Galadriel. It doesn't really fit her character, so I'll give another personal negative. Just seems like they're pushing this way too far. And what is that? A four-handed sword? A personal negative. It's probably one of the worst swords I've ever seen. And the last cover, Harfoot. My goodness, that wig. I'm gonna give that a personal negative just alone.
What is this new devilry?
I really hate the idea of homeless Harfoots wandering around. It's actually noted in the lore that they were accustomed to settle in one place for a very long time, which makes sense when they built smeals to live in, hobbit holes, if you're unfamiliar with the word. So I'll give it a low inaccuracy point as well. All material about them makes them look like nomadic people wandering around, which is also what Lenny Henry described them as in the interview mentioned back in September. The news teaser also pretty much confirms that they will indeed be wandering around, perhaps because of the Meteor Man. Let's move on to the images inside the magazines though. And let's stay with the Hobbits. It should be quite clear that they wander around and then stay in one place, as the lore states. I don't have much to add to all these. I'm not really a fan of the costumes, especially for hobbits.
Where did you get those clothes? At the toilet store?
So I'll give a personal negative for that. The lantern design though, it deserves a negative of its own. Not only is it very flammable, but the heat rises to your hand, man. What were you thinking? Let's have a look at the images with Arondir. I don't have much to add to these. Looks like his wooden armor got a scratch on it now though. This landscape with Arondir on top of a tower though, it looks quite good. A bit too video game-like. Could look a bit like Shadow of War or something. But it clearly is one of the better shots we've seen so far, so let's just be kind and give a personal positive at least. And then, oh god, the infamous Celebrimbor. Or as I like to call him, Celebrimbold. Old because he looks ancient now, and bold because not everyone is bold enough to wear an old lady's nightgown.
Not every man's brave enough to wear a corset.
I have to give the costume a personal negative. It's one of the worst I've seen so far. I don't think this casting was done very well. No matter how good an actor Charles Edwards might be, he is way too old to play an elf.
Oh, old Greybeard.
Especially Celebrimbor, who was quite a young elf in comparison to the other elves we know, so I'll give it a low inaccuracy point. And at the same time, I'll give it a personal negative for making Celebrimbor look much older than Galadriel when it should be the other way around. Now, it's never stated in the lore if Celebrimbor had black hair, but his father Corofin had, so it would only make sense. Hair color among elves is quite a big deal, so I'll give it another low inaccuracy point for that. The lamp and scroll and other props look fine though, so let's give a personal positive. Let's move on to Gil-galad crowning a bunch of elves. I'm really not a fan of the costumes. I think that should be clear by now. Looks like high fantasy to me. It gives me a bit of Warhammer vibes. Kinda reminds me of the High Elves from that. I don't feel it fits much in style with what fans know and love, at least for Middle-earth. Seems over the top and exaggerated whenever possible, really. So I'll give it another personal negative. Let's dive into some of the quotes in the magazine before we look at the last images.
Here we go.
Payne says the following. It had to stand on its own 2 feet, as something that felt faithful, but also its own thing. Just to make things clear, if this isn't already, The Rings of Power is not a faithful adaptation of Tolkien's works in any way. An adaptation can add things, fill in the blanks, and make some minor changes here and there. But this show contradicts Tolkien's visions so many times it shouldn't be allowed to be associated with Tolkien at all. But if you don't agree with me, take it from Tolkien himself. In his letter 210, he actually talks about films adapting his works. The canons of narrative, and in any medium, cannot be wholly different. And the failure of poor films is often precisely an exaggeration, and in the intrusion of unwarranted matter, owing to not perceiving where the core of the original lies. It should be quite obvious by now that Tolkien would have hated this show. So I'll give a personal negative for their comment, and I'll give another big one for releasing the show on the same day Tolkien died. That feels very disrespectful, if you ask me. Later on, Payne also says this: Tolkien's legendarium is this enormous tapestry that stretches 9,000 years. Well, that is not true, but let's count it. We will ignore the Fourth Age and just count backwards from the end of the Third Age. Now that's 7,052. Before the First Age, we have the years of the trees. And before the trees, there were the years of the lambs, also referred to as the Valiant years. Let's be kind and add the lower number. So all in all, that's more than 54,000 years. Anyway, my point here is that he clearly isn't a Tolkien expert, and nor did he try to become one. It only takes a few seconds to look this up on Tolkien Gateway, and he clearly didn't.
What is this, amateur hour?
I will forgive him this one time though, so no points. The series aims to spend 5 seasons exploring how Sauron rose, how the mythical island of Numenor fell, and the forging of 19 rings that would ultimately shape Middle-earth's destiny. There are 20 rings, but I assume they don't count the One Ring among them for some reason. But then the line doesn't really make sense, does it? The other 19 rings only shape the destiny of Middle-earth because of the One Ring. I will once again be generous and not give a law inaccuracy point here, but it does seem very odd to me. Let's move on. The article then goes on and basically admits that none of the known characters, such as Galadriel and Elrond, will be like we remember them. Yeah, I think we are many that have noticed that. It's also confirmed that Harfoots will indeed be a nomadic people. It's all a bunch of nonsense, and I've already given a negative low score for this.
Don't turn me into anything unnatural.
And then we get this from the showrunners. In his letters, Tolkien talked about wanting to leave behind a mythology that left scope for other minds and hands, wielding the tools of paint, music, and drama. We're doing what Tolkien wanted. As long as we felt like every invention of ours was true to his essence, we knew we were on the right track. Alright, that's it. What is wrong with them? That's a double negative. I'm not even kidding. Let's have a look at the actual letter by Tolkien, as they always seem to leave out the last word for some reason. Here it is, the letter to Milton Waldman, his publisher, in 1951. I'll give you a moment here to pause and read the whole thing. But notice that the last word here is absurd. I'll let you interpret that as you like. But it should be clear that the Rings of Power is not a mythology for England. The article goes on, and Payne and McKay keep repeating that they will go back to the source material, but they're clearly not.
Corruption and manipulation.
And they have some weird statement about friends betraying each other and other friends being dragged into Mordor. So clearly they haven't read the books. Let me quote Tolkien. Absurd. I have to give another personal negative for these guys. I can't stand them by this point. They're full of lies, and they have clearly no idea about the source material.
Poop! Get poop mouth! Get poop out of your mouth!
Anyway, let's get back to the images. We have the new mysterious character Halbrand with a mock, likely in Numenor. Looks like the Numenorians have given him some clothes though. Neurotic keeps saying that Halbrand will be Sauron. I'm not sure if he has any evidence to back that up, but at this point, nothing can surprise me. Galadriel, nothing new. Except I want to discuss the symbol she wears on her armor. Many have said that this looks like a Fëanorian star, and that she wouldn't be wearing that. So let's dive into that and discuss this. Now, it is very true that Galadriel hated Fëanor, like many other elves did, for several reasons. I think there's only one way she would be wearing this, and that is if it was made by Celebrimbor. He is the grandson of Fëanor and the best craftsman in Middle-earth after Fëanor. At the same time, he was in love with Galadriel, so if he had crafted it to her as a gift, I think it's likely she would have accepted it despite the symbol. But that is most likely not the case here. So instead, I'll do my very best to prove that this is not indeed a Fëanorian star. We know the symbol from the Doors of Durin created by Celebrimbor and the dwarf Na'vi. So let's try and compare the two. As you can see, the Fëanorian star always has these 8 lines going out from the center of the star. I guess the lines could symbolize the 7 sons of Fëanor, and then the last line could either be Fëanor himself or Celebrimbor. In any case, Galadriel's armor does not have that, so this is not a Fëanorian star. But she's actually not the only character in the show with this symbol on her. We see Finrod, her brother, with this star several times. Even some of the soldiers behind him has it. And likewise, gil-galad. So what symbol is this, you might think? It's the symbol of the House of Finarfin, which all 3 characters descend from. As you can see, the star has the 8 points like this symbol. It is an original design, but I think it fits well for the House of Finarfin. So I will actually give it a low accuracy point. And if you hear more people claim that this is a Fëanorian star, feel free to send them here. Speaking of the House of Finarfin, we have to address something that bothers me greatly. In the last part, I gave a point to how gil-galad resembles the actor from The Lord of the Rings. But if we go back to the family tree, yeah, gil-galad is the grandson of Galadriel's brother. I don't know about you, but it does sure like it's the other way around here. I'll give a personal negative for Galadriel's age, not matching the age of her family members. Let's stay with gil-galad. They make him wear gold, when silver would be more appropriate for an elf, especially the High King. The crown, bah, gives me Roman vibes. I'll give it a personal negative. And Elrond, the architect and politician, am I right? The costume is alright though, not breathtaking or anything. These are Durin. I'm not a fan of the look for Durin. The hair and beard looks a bit too fake for my taste, but I won't give a negative point for it. And the last image, which seems to be a dinner with Durin, Elrond, Celebrimbor, gil-galad, possibly Galadriel, and 3 others. Looks like gil-galad is finally wearing silver. So a personal positive. I really like the lamp designs here though, so they deserve a personal positive as well. And then there came out an article about languages. The article talks about Leith McPherson, that also worked in the Hobbit trilogy as a dialect coach. She's quite a fan of the appendices, especially Appendix E. I think it's quite good they brought in some people with experience from the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. I probably hoped they would bring in more people, but even the few they had is better than none. I'll give it a personal positive that they at least have done that. I've heard other Tolkien channels discuss that these might be dragon teeth, but I'm not sure if there's any evidence to support that. Not sure how it would end up in Moria. Maybe an old heirloom from the Blue Mountains. Who knows? Perhaps we'll find out in the show. I don't have much to add to the article. It's alright, so feel free to give it a read. I'll make sure to link it in the description. And that is all for part 4. In the next part we will talk about the orcs, the short promo, and the terrible book covers Amazon have published for the Lord of the Rings. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Farewell till next time.